mom had a saying that I guess came from my grandma. And it was, life gets teachers, don't it? And sometimes it's worse than teachers. Sometimes life is just almost unbearable. With two members of this congregation here having to fight cancer, and with the things that are happening to the Hollingshead family, that just seems to be a lot. It seems to be almost more than you can bear. Mm-hmm. So our first verse today is going to be in the book of Job, which just happens to be one of my absolute favorite books. Some people say it's about pain and suffering and all of that, but the real thing about Job is that God is in charge and it will all work out. Turn to Job, the 3rd chapter, and verse 23. Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in? Job felt like he was in a box that he just couldn't get out of. That everything was just too much. Why was I even allowed to be born? It's just... It's bad when bad things happen. But there's what I call the waterfalls of tragedy that just really get you. You know, when you have one thing that happens, and then you have another thing that happens, and then another, and it does. How many of us have ever felt that we were hedged in, that we were just boxed in, and that everywhere we looked, there was a problem, and tragedy was just almost more than we could handle? Well, that is a very real feeling. But I want you to turn, still in the book of Job, back to the 1st chapter. The book of Job. In verse 10. This is Satan speaking to God. Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. Job felt there was a hedge around him, that he was boxed in. Because of all the troubles, he thought God had hemmed him in with evil. But truly God had put a hedge around him to keep the evil out. Mm-hmm. As we go through the book of Job, we find that every time Satan wants to test him and try him, and God says, you can go this far and no further. When life's troubles get us, and they do, because Satan hates us, and he will take every opportunity to hurt us. And in my belief, when you have unlimited tragedies happening, it's because you're doing something especially right, and God has something really in store for you. But those things that attack us, as bad as they are only the things that make it over the edge. They have stopped so much more than we can imagine. And that's something that I think is important for us to realize, is that even in the darkest times, when life seems almost unbearable, God has placed a hedge around us to protect us. That even though we don't see it, He has deflected the slings and arrows of Satan and has been there on our side all the time. Turn now to Psalms 139 and verse 5. Trying to get to Psalms 139 is like trying to find my birthday. You have to go scroll. You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. David knew that God put a hedge around him, that He hemmed him in and out. And you go, well, yeah, that's David, King of Israel, who was hunted for years, who had to run, who had his wife given to another man. And yet he could say, you have hemmed me in on all sides. You have protected me. You have helped me. It is so important that we understand that God is, in the worst of times, there, and that He does have a plan. I want you to turn now to the New Testament, to the book of James. First chapter. Read verses 2 through 4. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete and lacking in nothing. There's an old saying that says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. What Satan is allowed to do to you is held back by God, so that what He's allowed to do to you is only to make you better, to make you into what God wants you to be. And that's something that I think it's hard for us to do. That's why I've heard this verse quoted many a time and never really had anybody have much emphasis behind it. Count it all joy when you face these various tests. Most people don't like tests. But that's because I wouldn't say most, but the way most people look at tests is there are ways that people want you to fail. And I did have a few teachers in school that's why they did tests, is they wanted you to fail. A good teacher wants you to learn what you don't know so that you be better. Because that's the actual purpose of the test, is to make you better. That's what these things that God let through the hedge to Job, what God lets through your hedge is for, is to make you better. The only difference between a stumbling block and a stepping stone is how you use it. How you react to those things, but God is letting them through to make you better. There's a TV show that I love to watch. It's called Special Forces, the world's toughest test. And that's a lie, because that show is not nearly as bad as you have to go through to be in real special forces. But it is rough. It is hard. Some of the people that you think are going to make it, the big, strong, buff people, don't make it. This last season, 2 people out of, I think, 16 made it. Sean Johnson and Gia Gadus. She's a young girl, this Gia. Her mom's famous, and she's a social person, and she's a wimp. You would never have thought she was going to make it. You'd have thought Sean Johnson would, because she's tough. She's a gymnast. She's tough. But what she had to work on, what they told her she had to work on, was being part of a team. Because gymnastics is you're by yourself out there. She had to learn how to be a team to get through there. The stuff wasn't hard for her, because she's tough. This Gia, one of the last things they did was they had to run. And they had to run with chains on them. 50 or 60 pounds of chains. And she's running, and she just can't do it. Says, do you want to give up? She goes, no. You keep going. Keep going. You kept thinking she was going to give up. Give up. She did. Every one of those people on that show, whether they go out early, or whether they go out just before, or whether they stand on that podium and are told, we'd go into battle with you. We trust you. Every one of them is better when they leave that test than when they went in. They have all gotten better. That's what this life is, brothers and sisters. This life is where God puts things in front of us to make us better, so that we can be closer to what Jesus wants. It's counterintuitive, but James said we should count it all joy. We should be happy when these things happen, because it's God making us better. It's God giving us the strength. We've been studying the book of Genesis for a while in Bible class. Now I'm going to go to Genesis 50 and verse 20. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. Joseph's brothers meant him evil. They meant him harm. God takes even those things that are meant to hurt us and turns them into blessings, turns them into good things. Maybe you'll say, why me? Why me, Lord? Why not me? I'm God's child. He's looking out for me. Why shouldn't I bear a burden for him? Why not me? I have God's hand on me. And I will tell you something that I believe with all my heart. When you go through something absolutely horrendous, God has at least one somebody out there that is too weak to go through that without your help. And you have gone through it just to be there for that person. Because the next verse I was going to use is 1 Corinthians 10:13. And I'll tie that in here. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. I believe that God is preparing you to be the way of escape for someone else. That he's preparing you to be that person that helps somebody. Why not me? I can take it because I know that God is with me. I know there were times when I was in school, my roommates and I would look up and say, God, you think we're stronger than we are. You just don't know. But he did. He always got us through. We always made it better. It is so important that we understand this, because Satan is going to try to drag you down. He's going to try to hurt you. As bad as what's happening in the Hollingshead family, some families have had worse. But as Christians, we know that there's a hedge. And nothing gets through that is not, if we use it correctly, going to be for our good. I am firmly convinced that one of the great problems we have in the church today is we hide our struggles so that nobody is able to use that which God has prepared us for. That we hide those things instead of coming out and saying, yes, I have a son with drug problems, or I have drug problems myself, or all these things happen. You know, there's nothing worse than when somebody comes up and says, I understand how you feel, when they haven't been there. If you've been through what they've been through, then you can say, yes, brother, lean on me. I've been there. I know where the landmines are. Just hold on. But if you haven't been there, say, I feel for you. Say, I haven't been there. But I help you all I can. I help you. Because we always see those pictures and those cartoons of the footprints in the sand. And when there's one set of footprints, Jesus says, well, that's where I carried you. Don't forget, the arms that Jesus uses to carry the brothers and sisters when they're having a heavy load is you. You're the arms that are going to pick them up. You're the arms that are going to hug them. You're the ones that are going to have to be there just to listen when they cry. I don't know what to say to them. Say, I'm here for you, brother. You want to cry? Go right ahead. It's okay. God had broad shoulders. And he asked me to use mine to help you. I'm going to end this on something that I think is important that we understand. I come from California, and I lived very near to San Simeon.